Okay, brilliant. So actually we can see those subordinate conjunctions in use by our writer, and the nerd in me was getting bugged because that unnamed, unshaded, unpaved thing was playing on my mind. And actually Charles Dickens does it in A Christmas Carol. He talks about unwept, uncared, unwatched. So actually we do see this device being used by really cool writers, Dickens, Capote. So just a little heads up, if you really want to impress me in your writing that you do today, that would be a way to do it, to use a sentence that uses that structure. Okay, so next little test. Okay, on the next slide, we're going to see another activity just to secure this use of subordinate structures, conjunctions. Okay, darling, so we can see on our purple side representing the subordinate clauses. So here we've used those subordinating words, a variety of them, after, although, as far, whenever, until. Now, I've just done this activity to create that continuity. I've matched them to those nouns from my plan. So after the sky cleared, although the wheat resisted the wind, as far as the horizon stretched, whenever the sun retreated, until the clouds burst. Now, your job is to match the noun in the subordinate clause on this side to the conjunction to the clause to make the best sentence. So in other words, you've got to match our subordinating clause and decide which of the red clauses it's best matched with. Now, this is really important because sometimes when we use subordinating clauses, it is relational. It has to make a relationship to the next idea that you're using in the sentence. Okay, they're connected. So after the sky cleared, it couldn't resist the thresher's blade. There is no relationship between those two elements. That sentence wouldn't work. Okay, so there is this sense that when we're building subordinate clauses into sentences, we are looking to make sure that there is a relationship to what comes next. So your job is to decide which is the best match. Okay, so after the sky cleared, it couldn't resist the thresher's blade. Well, there's no relationship between those elements. After the sky cleared, the shadows advanced forward. Now, okay, so shadows and sky, but actually if the sky is clear, you can't have shadows, so that doesn't work either. After the sky cleared, they carried the weight of the rain. Not going to work. After the sky cleared, the harvest could begin. Okay, I'm just pausing there so we know that there's a certain time that they harvest in from a couple lessons ago. So actually that could be the best, but I'm just going to double check. After the sky cleared, mark the boundary of the plane. Okay, no. So we've got our complete sentence now. After the sky cleared, the harvest could begin. Now, what you can also see is at the end of each of these subordinating clauses, our comma, okay, our comma there is a really important device. It marks the boundary between the two clauses, okay? So you always use a subordinating clause, sorry, a comma at the end of a subordinating clause, okay? Now, you do the next part of the job, match them up. Okay, let's see if you were right. So we'd already done after the sky cleared, the harvest could begin. Although the wheat resisted the wind, it couldn't resist the thresher's blade. Now that's the image that the wheat is survived, weather, rain, wind, and then along comes the thresher and it chops it down. So you've got the repetition there of resisted and resist. So sometimes our word choices can help us ensure that we're creating the right relationships between ideas. And we've got that lovely kind of seesaw moment that's created by although. So if you were using an although sentence, it tends to be like a seesaw. It changes from one idea to the next. Okay, as far as the horizon stretched, mark the boundary of the plains. Okay, so that you imagine you can see the horizon stretching and that's the boundary of the plains. Lovely. Now, whenever the sun retreated, did you get it? The shadows advance forward. Now, I like that wordplay again. Retreat, advance, retreat, advance. It's almost like a little bit of warfare going on in the weather system here. So whenever the sun retreats, disappears, the shadows could advance. Okay, until the clouds burst, they carried the weight of the rain. Okay, darling, so hopefully that gives you a chance to see that relationship between the two parts of a sentence that use subordinating clauses. And now we're going to put it into practice. Okay, so your job is going to be, she says, to press pause in a minute and to have a little look at a writing task, so an application to your own writing. Okay, darlings, here it is then. So we're now going to revise our writing from yesterday. You remember you had those 3 sentences. I did ask you to get them out in front of you at the beginning of the lesson. Hopefully they included a positives. But now, and you may have already used subordinating conjunctions without realizing, but I really want you to be intentional. I want you to look at your writing from yesterday and rewrite at least one of those sentences to use a subordinating conjunction at the start. Okay, so it's a simple revision for us. We're not adding more sentences. I don't want you to add sentences that use subordinating conjunctions. I want you to choose one from yesterday and begin to look at how you could restructure it to include a subordinating sentence. Now, when we revise, we sometimes end up with writing that's going to begin to look like this. We're making our changes onto our writing. So I had yesterday, in the beginning, my eye is drawn to. So I've changed the beginning part in the beginning. I've crossed that out. I'm now using my subordinating conjunction while waiting. My eye is drawn to the expanse of sky, a blue blanket tucked in tight against the horizon. Now, guys, all my choices of subordinate conjunctions are coming from the little bank to the left of you. Okay, now here I've changed next my eye goes to. So now I've used that subordinating conjunction as. So as the blue horizon turns to gold, a swathe of golden cereal ripples like the sea. Okay, and actually I've had to change a few other bits for that sentence to work, but that's the whole point of revision. And I've got rid of until in the end, and now it's until the house, a worn and weathered building, appears like a boat cast adrift in the sea. So I've actually changed each of my sentences just to show you different ways you can use subordinating conjunctions. You only need to choose one as a minimum. If you find this quite easy, or you want to add in more, you can. Okay, so you're going to press pause and do your revision. Brilliant, guys. So now we've used appositives, which are an amazing way to add information and complexity. Now we've used subordinate conjunctions, a super way to craft variety and complexity. So our third and final sentence trick or sentence level writing tool is different sentence types. Now, when we talk about sentence types, we can talk about the job sentences do, as well as their variety, their complexity. But we're going to approach it today in terms of thinking about 4 different sentence types. Now, this we can go quite quickly through. Okay, we've got sentences that pose questions. So any sentence that ends in a question mark is doing the job of questioning. Okay, sometimes known as an interrogative at A level. There you go. But for us, it's a question. So we're going to think about using these in a minute. We can have commands. Now, these are sentences that begin with verbs. They give instructions and commands. They tell you what to do. And they're very rarely used in descriptive writing. Okay, so we're not going to worry too much about commands today. This is more for information. Okay, statements. Now, these are the ones I've put a tick here already that you probably have been using. Now, these are the traditional sentences, end in full stops that give information and description. Okay, so the likelihood is you've already used statements, so we can tick that one off. Now, we've got the 4th type, exclamation. Okay, now there's our little exclamation mark. These are sentences that show heightened emotion or emphasis. No! Okay, exclamation. So again, these are used quite rarely, but they can be used within descriptive writing if we want. So just to quickly show you some of these in use, Holcomb too can be seen from great distances. So we see this in the text today. There's our full stop. Now, if I'm going to create a question, I have to change my structure. So can Holcomb be seen from great distances? Now, I'm going to tell you a trick. Questions can be a really nice fix. We can really quickly bring questions into our writing. Then we can lead into an answer. So it's a nice cohesive structural device. And really the revision we're going to do in a minute is about bringing in questions. Okay, but I'm just going to show you, okay, how we could use an exclamation if we were so inclined. Holcomb! It too can be seen from great distances. So can you see we've got those 3 sentence types. Holcomb too can be seen from great distances, the statement. Can Holcomb be seen from great distances, the question. And Holcomb, the exclamation. Now, the command, as I said, we're not using in this type of writing, so we're not going to worry about that one today. So, next task. I want you to revise your writing one last time. This time we're going to begin our description by forcing ourselves to think how could we use a question that leads into our first sentence. Now, this is a surefire cheat to include different sentence types, so hitting that great criteria of variety. So all you need to do now is add a question to the start of your writing. And I've done it here. Can you imagine the vast loneliness of the Kansas wheat plains? Whilst your eye is drawn to the expanse of sky, a blue blanket tucked in tight against the horizon. Now you can see I've started to make other revisions. There's certain things I'm not happy with here. Okay, so a sentence that is a question that is a sentence, a question. We're going to begin our writing by just adding a question to the start. Can you imagine the vast loneliness of the Kansas Wheat Plains? Have you ever been to the Kansas Wheat Plains? Have you ever seen the beauty of the Kansas Wheat Plains? So all you need to do now is pause and add a question at the very start of your paragraph. And then we've hit the criteria of different sentence types. So, beautiful people, you now are going to have time to revise and rewrite your full sentences to provide the best crafted description you can. We're going to hit our criteria across the top of using appositives, subordinate conjunctions, and sentence types. And that's about creating sentences that demonstrate complexity, variety, and descriptive information, which are all the hallmarks of amazing writers. That's what the best writers do. That's what Truman Capote's done. That's what I remember Dickens has done. Now the challenge is, can you do it? There's also the vocabulary challenge. Can you use a new vocab item in your revised writing? So we can see there I've just brought in that term inexplicable into my opening question. Can you imagine the vast, inexplicable loneliness of the Kansas Wheat Plains? Whilst walking, your eye widens as it absorbs the expanse of sky. So I'm also changing my word choices. I'm changing some of my decisions that I've made earlier. Revision is about being honest with yourself, being your own critic. Okay, actually, I could do that better. I could choose a better word choice here. Okay, whilst walking, your eye widens as it absorbs the expanse of the sky, a starched blue blanket tucked in tight against the horizon. Now, I've added starch there because actually when I look at my image, sometimes blue blankets can be soft, can't they? And like wavy, and I think about a blanket that can be soft and wrapped around me. When you've got a starch blanket, it's an old-fashioned term. It means you put a particular chemical in, you put starch into your blankets to make them really stiff. Okay, you starch things to make them really crisp and stiff. So I've added in the word starch there to create the image of a really stiff blue sky. Okay, as the blue horizon turns to gold, the wheat, a swathe of golden cereal, ripples like the sea, until the house, a worn and weathered building, appears like a boat cast adrift. So I've revised my writing. So you're going to pause in a minute and you're going to go and do the best job you can. Now, this isn't about adding more and more sentences. This is about looking at the sentences you've got and making them a beautiful crafted example of really strong description. So to that end, my lovely, you need to think about how we're going to submit this. So you are going to be asked to submit this. So you're going to have time now to do your final version. Okay, your beautiful crafted sentences, no more than 5 sentences describing your image. Okay, you're going to check that it's got different sentence types, that it's got subordinating conjunctions and appositives, and hopefully some of that beautiful vocabulary. I remember if anybody's doing that image with the dark, sinister clouds. Okay, and there's some ideas from the Truman Capote and the work we've done today. So beautiful people, enjoy being creative. It's so good for your brain. It's so good to keep your mental health happy and healthy. Your brain loves to be creative. And if you've got that little voice in your head saying, no, it doesn't, it just needs to be retrained. Creativity, imagination are really good for you. So guys, you're going to do a beautiful paragraph of description. Now it says here you can either email your work or take a screenshot and submit it on Show My Homework. Now you can email that to your teacher or to me. I don't mind being inundated. All I would ask is if that you're sending your beautiful work to me, that you give me the time to look at it. But I would love to see your creative responses to this, guys. So happy writing, happy being creative, and I'm looking for a really beautiful powerhouse paragraph, okay, of 4 to 5 sentences that describe your image. Happy writing.